uh, marriage is such an incredible thing. And it just so happened that I am coming to you today on my anniversary. So Kay and I are celebrating a special anniversary today. But unfortunately, she is not here with me. She's in the US, and we're celebrating our 1,370-day anniversary today. It has been an amazing 1,370 days. Do you know why 1,370 days is so special? Do you know why? Because you can only celebrate it one time in your life. It's been so good. But let me introduce my family to you. And I know some of you know us. You know my two children that were here. But let me introduce my wife. And I want to talk a little bit about what the world thinks about marriage, what the world thinks about family, and what the Bible say about it, and how we can live that kind of life. So let's see if we can get some photos. I have some photos to show you. And once we get it up here, Kay is my second wife. My first wife had passed away about maybe 6 years or so ago now. But the way that I met Kay was very interesting, because I was doing some training in Japan, and in 4 days of training, I talked to her for 2 minutes. And 6 months later, her pastor invited me to her home. And there it is. That's our wedding photo. So 6 months later, I was invited to her church. The pastor had invited me to her church, and I did some teaching there for 4 more days. And at that time, I talked to Kay for 8 minutes. So 2 plus 8 would be 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, I knew she would be my wife. So I tell people, getting married is easy. You need 10 minutes. But, so after the 10 minutes, shortly after that, with the translator, I called her pastor. And I said, Pastor, I would like to court Kay. I would like to date her with the intention of marrying her. So you say, wait a minute. How do you know 10 minutes that she would be your wife, right? So when I called the pastor, he was very shocked. He was very surprised. And then the pastor told his wife, and she was very surprised. Now, Kay wasn't home at that time. She wasn't at the church. She was at a youth conference. So she came back a couple of days later, and they told her about it, and she was very surprised. Anyway, we began a relationship. Kay said she was open to getting to know me more. So I said, I have 1 day free in Tokyo. I don't usually have a free day when I travel to Japan. So I said, I have 1 free day. Would you like to come to Tokyo to visit me, or would you like me to go to your hometown to visit you? She said, oh, no, let me come to Tokyo, because she didn't want anybody at her church to know. So I went and visited her, and we had our first date. We had a 5-hour date, and that's how our relationship got started. Now, the relationship was a long-distance relationship. And as we started dating online, through WhatsApp, through Line, through the video call, that's when the Lord started to give me a love for her and giving her more of a love for me. But something very interesting, because we courted for about 14 months. And the only reason we waited that long was so that we can wait for the US fiance visa. So we needed to wait for the fiance visa so that I can bring her to the US. But as we were dating, as we were preparing for our marriage, the wedding, it's interesting what the world say about marriage and what God says about marriage. So while we were dating, she had 4 or 5 sisters, some of them from her church, including an elder who was an elder of the church. They all came to her and they said this. They said, Kay, you're so happy now because you're dating Pastor Seumean. But we want to tell you that after the wedding, after the honeymoon, things are going to change. That's what they told her. So after one lady said it, she was okay, but then the second and a third and a fourth and a fifth lady, and after they told her that, she was getting a little bit nervous. But not only that, there was one time another pastor's wife, had told Kay, Kay, you're going to marry Pastor Seumean, and he has two teenagers. And I married a pastor from America, and he had two teenagers. Kay, I want to tell you, it was so hard. You know, having teenagers is so hard. And then marriage and wedding, it's so hard. So she said, if you need help, you let me know, because I told you it was so hard. So Kay, because her parents' marriage was not so good, you know, so she was getting nervous. And because she was getting nervous, she came to me one day and she said this. Um, she said, Seumean, um, it's a true that after the wedding, after the honeymoon, things are going to change. Because she didn't see good model of marriages. She said, is that true? But the world has this perspective on marriage that after you get married, things are going to change. Things are going to be worse. As a matter of fact, a week before my wedding, I was getting my hair cut. And I was so happy. I was in America. I'm getting my hair cut. I'm so happy. This lady's cutting my hair. And she said, why are you so happy today? I said, I'm getting married. I'm marrying a Japanese lady. She said, oh no. I said, what do you mean, oh no? She said, you will have more white hair. That's what she said. You know, after the wedding, things are going to get worse. After the wedding, you have more white hair. So Kay was nervous. So she came and asked me. She said, is it true things are going to change? And I told her, Kay, I agree. Things will change. But I am going to love you more than before we got married. She was so surprised. You said, wait a minute, how can you say that? Because I see it in the Bible. The Bible teaches me that Proverbs 18, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor from the Lord. The Bible tells me in Psalm 127 that children are a blessing, an inheritance from the Lord. And, you know, we should have a arrow full, you know, quiver full, and we can shoot them out straight into the enemies. So the Bible clearly tells us that marriage is an amazing thing, that the two shall become one. And if we read in the Songs of Solomon, marriage is such an amazing thing. It is so beautiful, but yet so many people haven't experienced this kind of marriage. So when I told Kay, I believe things are going to change. Things are going to change, but I'm going to love you even more. Now, she was a little bit surprised. She told me recently, she said when I told her that, she didn't quite believe me. Why? Because she didn't have good models for it. And so she was a little bit shocked by all of that. So anyway, so Kay and I now have been married for 1,370 days. And I have two children. My son is Xingming, Kuon Xingming. He's 21. My daughter is Eileen, so Kuon Eileen, and she's 20. And so I want to just introduce my family and show you a few photos. And let me see. So that's our wedding photo. The top left, it's our engagement photos. And let me see. Oh, yes, our engagement photos and wedding here, nice big cake. In Japan, the culture, the wedding culture here, it's a little bit different. In America, when you get married, you cannot see the bride until the wedding begins. But in Japan, it's a little bit different. In Japan, while they're preparing the bride, you can sit and watch the preparation take place. So while they were preparing Kay here, I am sitting maybe just right where the front chair is to here, so maybe about 12 feet or so, maybe 4 meters or so, just from her. And I'm just looking at her, and they're preparing her, you see, and she's being changed before my very eyes. And I'm looking at her, and I say, wow, wow. Now, the lady that was preparing her, she was so shocked. She said, you're the first husband to be, the first groom to be that looked at the wife and ever say, wow. She said, no other man has ever said, wow. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, we're getting married. If you're marrying your bride to be, and you get to look at her, and do you just stare at her and go, no, no, you get to see her, and you're about to marry this wonderful, lovely lady. Don't you get excited? So I had this privilege. I was like, so wow. But another thing that was interesting was that the Lord told me before I married her, the Lord told me specifically have at least 3 honeymoons a year. And so let me show you just the first couple of honeymoons that we've had. So honeymoon number 1, after we got married, we spent about 8 days traveling around Japan with the kids. So that's honeymoon number 1. And it was a wonderful time eating the Japanese cuisine, and the ladies dressed up in their summer kimonos. And we had a wonderful time. Honeymoon number 2, this is the Niagara Falls. And a friend has a house on a lake. This is the house on the lake. And they said, if we want to stay at their place, it's free. By the way, when I go back home to America, and I go back to the US on March the 13th, and on March 25th, we'll be celebrating honeymoon number 12. And honeymoon number 12, we're going on a cruise. And because a couple of months ago, someone just called us and said, do you want to have a free cruise? So we say, yes, honeymoon number 12. All our 12 honeymoons are basically free. Because the Lord wants us to go on the honeymoon, He always gives us something free in the honeymoon. So this is free, honeymoon number 2. Oh, I missed honeymoon number 3 in there, but anyway, so far we've had 11 honeymoons. But in addition, let me show you a couple of photos of my children. And I don't know if you can tell where this is. Does anybody know where this is at? Can you take a guess? You should recognize this because it's in Malaysia. This is in Rodan Island. So the last time I came, prior to the MCO, I came with my kids, and we were able to go to Malaysia. Now, take a look here. My daughter, she's swimming like a mermaid, and she is just smiling away. And I don't know if you can see my picture here. She's smiling beautifully, and I am just barely breathing. So what happened there is this. We had to swim quite a bit of a way to get to the place where we can take the photo. But there's something that I've learned along the way, that I want to do the things that my children like to do. Even though I might not like it, I don't like swimming, I don't like climbing, I don't like hiking, I don't like height, but because they like it, my way of loving them is because they like it, I try to do the things that they like. And as a result of it, the Lord has blessed us with some wonderful relationship, because a week after we got married, Kay came back when she came to Houston to live with us, she saw just us sitting together, myself and the children and Kay, and we were talking and talking and talking, and we were talking about so many different things. And Kay was so surprised. She said, wow, I didn't think that teenagers can talk to the parents. And she said, but you all talk about so many different things. And she was so surprised that we can have good relationship with children. And not only that, but do you know what happened between Kay and my children? It turned out, see, when Kay asked me, will things change? I told her, yes, Kay, I'm gonna love you even more. But not only that, but you are gonna love my children and my children will love you. Why can I say that? Because I see it in the Bible. I see it in the Bible. And, let's see. Here, it was the first Mother's Day. After we got married, first Mother's Day, my son woke up at 6 o'clock to go buy flowers for her, and both of them prepared breakfast for her. When my daughter turned 18, she invited Kay to go on a trip with her. They went to Hawaii. She was 18 years old, and she invited her, she invited her stepmother, and she paid for the stepmother's trip to Hawaii. The 18-year-old girl paid for her stepmother's trip. Why? Because she loves her so much, and he loves her so much, and they do a lot of things together. It's been so incredibly amazing. It's been so incredibly amazing. People say marriage is hard. People say having children and teenagers is hard. People say raising children, it's hard. And they said having relationship with the teenagers, it's so hard. But I tell them, no, 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 no. I am not going to accept people's experiences and make it my reality, not when it goes against the Word of God. The Word of God clearly tells us we can have an amazing, abundant life, that we can have an amazing, amazing marriage, that we can have an amazing family. So if you were to ask me today, how do you feel about Kay today? Today, right now, March 2nd, right? March 2nd, 2023. How do you feel about Kay today? I would tell you, if you can look into my heart, you will see fireworks going off. And I would tell you, if you can hear the beat of it, if you can hear it, it's going boom, 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 because I love her so much. As a matter of fact, there's something so special. One thing that I have learned this last almost 4 years, 1,370 days, I never thought marriage can be so good. I never thought marriage can be so good. It is so incredibly amazing. And Kay can tell you, if you were to ask her, Kay, how do you feel about your current marriage, with Pastor Seumean? How do you feel about that? We do a lot of marriage training and a marriage of strengthening. A year after we got married, we were talking to a couple, we were helping this couple, and usually we would ask them, if you can rate from a 1 to a 10, how would you rate your marriage today? 10 being that it's the best, it's the most awesome. And I remember one pastor said a 4, and then they asked us, and they asked Kay, how do you rate your marriage? She said 8. So this was a year after we got married. Now, a few weeks ago, we were ministering to another couple, and we did the same thing. How do you rate your marriage? And they would tell us the number, and then they asked Kay, how would you rate it? She said 9.2. See, it's getting better and better and better. Some people say when wine age, it tastes better. Marriage is supposed to get better and better and better and better. It is such a tremendous, awesome gift from the Lord. But very few of us, very few, have experienced this incredible, amazing, abundant marriage that God wants to give us. The amazing life. But the thing that we're talking about, it's not just having an amazing marriage and having good relationship with one another and good relationship with our children. See, there's so much more. We have the good relationship, but every one of us, our heart's desire is not just to have great marriage and great relationship, but God has a greater purpose for us. My son, he's 21, but his heart is actually out in the mission field. He loves to go to Bangladesh here, and he loves to serve homeless people. He loves little children. They both serve in the worship team ever since they were 13 and 14 years old. They've been out to the mission field ever since they were 13, 14 years old, and every summer they would go out, they would serve. My son is graduating this coming year, and in a couple of months. And he told me, he said, Dad, he texted me several months ago. He said, Dad, you know, after graduation, I got this job, but I would like to move into a poor neighborhood in America because his heart is to minister to the poor people. And they love the Lord and they love to minister to people. He's 21. My daughter is 20. Her heart is for ladies that are hurting and needy, sex trafficked ladies, for example. That's her heart. See, the life that God wants us to have, it's the abundant life. Jesus said he wants to give us life that is abundant. He wants to give us an amazing, abundant marriage. He wants to give us an amazing, abundant family. When God created us, this is what he wanted all of us to have. But not so many. You know what's interesting is that when I share the message about marriage, I have so many people that would come up to me afterward and they said, you're the first person that I've ever heard that you can have an amazing marriage. But I have some really wonderful news for you. I have some wonderful news for you. The principle that I'll be teaching you today, it's the principle that I've been teaching many couples in the last few years. And the good news is this. Do you know what many of these couples are saying? Let me give you an example. In KL, there was this young couple. They were in their early 30s, and they were dating. And their relationship was so bad. It was so bad. The reason it was so bad was because the mom, hated the girl. One time in public, in front of some friends and people, even, they're not married yet, but the mother of the man started yelling at the girl in front of everybody. And the girl was so upset. I mean, she yelled in front of friends and families, and the girl was so upset. They said, I'm not even married, and your mom is already yelling all of these things at me in front of everybody. She said, there's no way I can marry you. The pastor of the church they go to, the pastor's wife, all of the leaders told them, they said, oh, this will never work out. It will never work out. You should not get married. So everybody told them they shouldn't get married because they said it will never work. And they said there's no way to fix it too. That's what they told them. They cannot be fixed. You just need to break up. So because the pastors told them to do that, they decided to break up. But when they broke up, the man was so heartbroken, he even thought about doing something really awful. He couldn't handle it. But then the young lady attended one of the training to remove the stones, and she started finding peace and joy in her life. And the man noticed that. The man's name is Ryan, the girl is Janet. So Ryan noticed that Janet has so much transformed, and he said, I want some of that. And then, you know, we helped him to get his heart cleansed, and he started having peace and joy. And they started dating again, and they began to experience something really, really beautiful. And even the mother, the man's mother, started noticing, why is the girl so nice to me now? Even though I yell at her, she is so nice to me. Why is she so loving? Eventually, after a few more months, the mother said, I want some of that. So the mother's heart was also changed. And last June, they invited me to come to Malaysia to marry them. So they've been married now for about 9 months. And I just saw them in KL last week. Do you know what they said when I asked them? I said, how's your marriage? Do you know what they said? They said, we never thought it can be this good. They said, it is so good. They were laughing and joking, and they said, we never thought it can be so good. But not only that, not only did their marriage improve, guess what happened to the mother? The mother now loves so much the daughter, her daughter-in-law. As a matter of fact, often when she doesn't see her, how's Janet doing? Here, give her some food. Oh, we miss Janet. The total transformation was so incredible. And they can tell you, not only do they have an amazing marriage now, but they have an amazing family because God started doing such a wonderful work in the marriage, in the relationship with the mother-in-law, in the relationship with their family, and the family completely transformed because they learned the principle and they started applying it, and things began to change. It was so incredible and so amazing. What if I were to tell you that you and I can have this kind of life? That we can have the most amazing marriage, that we can have the most amazing family. And not only that, but if we learn this, we can pass it on to our children and our grandchildren. They'll be able to learn it, they'll be able to live it, and it will be so incredibly beautiful. Amen. Oh my goodness, I know I'm looking at you. It is so incredibly amazing. Well, tonight, that was just an introduction because today I want to focus on marriage. Tomorrow, I'm going to focus on the 4 principles on how to raise amazing children and how to have an amazing family for the Lord. The thing about these principles is that they are very easy, very, very easy. If we understand the principle and we learn how to live out these principles. Now, I do also want you to know that this is not the complete training. Usually I do it in a day's time. Today, we'll just do it for about 2.5, 3 hours or so. But you'll get a really good overview of it. And you'll understand the principle well enough. Okay. Now, if you apply some of these principles, you will see some incredible, amazing results. Okay? And also, if you have any question, please just raise your hand. For those of you online, if you have any questions, just send it and maybe we'll have someone monitoring that can pass the question. And we'll be able to answer all of your questions for you. Amen? Okay, any questions so far? That's just the introduction. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So the 4 principles, I'll be repeating them all the time, but I want to talk about principle number 1. Principle number one. Um, love is a choice. And because love is a choice, the first question is, what kind of marriage, what kind of life, what kind of marriage do you want? I want you to think with me for a second. Jesus said in John 10:10 that he's come to give you and I a life that is abundant. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. Do you know what life abundant looks like? What is life abundant? What is life abundant? You know, for some of us as Asian, we think life abundant. Some Asian think life abundant is maybe when we have money. Some people think life abundant is when our children or we can be successful. Now, those things are good things. I'm not saying money is a bad thing, and I'm not saying success is a bad thing. Those things are good things. But my question is this. Let's say even if we have money and we have success, would it be abundant if our marriage is broken, if our children are depressed, if they're cutting themselves and hurting themselves, if the children grow up, let's say our children grow up and they become successful and they come to us, they say, Mom, Dad, we don't want to talk to you anymore. Mom, Dad, you know, we have money, but we don't care for you anymore. Would that be abundant? Most of us would say no, right? That's not abundant. What would life abundant look like? Do you know what most people would say of life abundant? The life abundant is when we have love, when we have joy, when we have peace, when we have a greater purpose in our lives, when we walk in righteousness. You know, as Christian, I ask parents, what would you like your children to have when they get older? They say, well, I want my children to walk in the ways of the Lord. Righteousness. So what if the life abundant has righteousness, the peace, the joy, the love, and a greater purpose? And this is what the Bible teaches. For example, in Romans 14:17, the Bible teaches this. The kingdom of God, it's not just a matter of eating or drinking, but of righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. So what if we have righteousness, peace, and joy in our lives? What if we have righteousness, peace, and joy in our marriage? What if we have righteousness, peace, and joy in our family? Would this not be an abundant life? And what if we have amazing love? What if husband loves the wife loves the husband, and we love the children and the children love us? Would this not be an abundant life? Now, you know, if we have money or not, but we have the love, joy, and the peace with money, or the love, joy, and peace without money, we can have both. Some people might have more money, some people might have less, but we still can have love, joy, and peace, the abundant life. Do you know what is so interesting? You remember that pastor and his wife, when I mentioned to him, from a 1 to a 10, how would you rate your marriage? He said a 4. And he said this, he said it's a 4, but he said, but I'm okay with it. He said, it's a 4, but I'm okay. You know, he said, like, my marriage is okay. We're okay. Now, what is an okay marriage? What is an okay marriage? An okay marriage might be, you do your thing, I do my thing. We're okay. We're okay. You do your thing, I do, you know, maybe we argue once in a while, but you do your thing, I do my thing. We're okay. By the way, let's say if you need surgery one day and you need surgery. And you ask the nurse, "Nurse, how is the surgeon?" And the nurse said, "Well, the surgeon is okay. You know, when he does surgery, sometimes they live, sometimes they die. He's okay." Will you settle for an okay surgeon? Of course not. You know, why would that pastor settle for an okay marriage? Do you know why? Why would someone settle for an okay marriage? Why? Why? Because the pastor, he ministered to so many people, and he saw in his church many broken marriages. So he's thinking, hey, my marriage is okay. I'm a 4, I'm a 5, but those other people's marriage are a 2 or 3, it's broken. So an okay marriage, it's better than a broken marriage. So he said, I'm okay. But you know what? I don't accept an okay marriage. Do you know why? Because Jesus never said, I've come that you might have life and your life will be okay. If Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and your life will be okay, then I would say, okay, I'll take an okay life. Okay, I'll take an okay marriage. But he said, I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. Jesus told us that we can have an abundant life, that we can have an abundant marriage, that we can have an abundant family. So no, I am not going to accept okay when I can go for what is abundant. The abundant marriage, the kingdom marriage, the boom, boom, boom marriage, the kind that said, wow, I can't believe marriage is so good because the two become one. Somebody asked me the other day, we were talking about this. They said, you know, having a good marriage is hard work. Hard work. It is true, if the marriage is broken, you really have to work hard. But I told them, you know, I've been married with Kay for 1,370 days plus 14 months of courtship. Never one time did I ever thought marriage was hard work. Never. I never wake up in the morning and said, oh man, this is going to be hard work to make it work. Do you know what I usually do when I wake up in the morning? When I wake up in the morning, often I would look at my wife. Now you might think this is silly. I look at my wife and I go, wow. So I would look at her and go, wow. Do you know why I do that? Because there was one time while we were dating and we were doing the long distance communication, one day it was nighttime in Houston and morning time in Japan. So now Kay was just waking up in the morning. And when she answered the phone, her video was off. It was the first time she turned the video off. And she said this, she said, Seumean, I just woke up. Is it okay if I have my video off? I said, sure, Kay, no problem, no problem. But I always remember that. I always remember that. Because why? Because sometimes men and women, but in particular women, sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you don't want your husband or your boyfriend or your friend to look at you because you just woke up in the morning, right? So I understood that. I knew what Kay was thinking, that she didn't want me to look at her because she just woke up in the morning. So I kept that in my heart and I said, okay. You know, I waited several months later when we got close to our wedding date. I told her this, I said, Kay, I look forward to the wedding. I look forward to the honeymoon. But what I also really look forward to is the day after our wedding. Because on the day after the wedding, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say, wow. I'm going to say, wow. And I did that because I wanted Kay to know that I love her even when she first wake up in the morning, that she doesn't have to turn off the video. Do you know why? Because I decided right off the bat, in the beginning of the relationship, I know the kind of marriage I want. I want the kingdom marriage. I want the marriage that is abundant. I want the best marriage that I can have, the one that Jesus wants to give me, because I see it in the Bible. If you ever read the Song of Solomon, you can see the relationship between a husband and a wife, and you said how amazing it is. Do you remember the story about Isaac and Rebecca, right? You remember one time after Abraham died, and Isaac and Rebecca went to this town of Gerar, and Isaac, told the king that Rebecca was his sister. And then one day the king was at the window and he was looking out, and he saw, according to the Bible, Isaac showing affection to Rebecca. He was just loving upon her, showing affection. Do you know how long they had been married? And you can figure it out based on when Isaac was born, when Abraham died. It was over 30 years. They have been married for over 30 years. And yet, Isaac loved Rebecca so much that he continued to show affection to her. So I see in the Bible that marriage can be incredible and amazing. So it begins with this. Number one, because love is a choice. What kind of marriage do you want? What kind do we want? There's only 4 principles. If you and I want the abundant kingdom marriage, it's so much easier to work at it. It's so much easier to get it. Let me give you another example of this. My last argument with my wife, the last time we argued, the last time I got angry with her was June of last year. Okay, so it's been 8 months or so, the last time I got angry with her. So this was what happened. We were talking about our trip to Brazil, and there was a miscommunication and misunderstanding. So she was lying. We were both getting ready to go to sleep. We were both on the bed. And so she's angry and I'm angry. We're a little bit upset. Okay. Now, usually when you're married and you're upset with your spouse and you're lying on bed, in Malaysia, what do you do? Okay, you know, online people, I'm sorry, I'm gonna move out of here and I'm gonna get the answer from some of the audience here, and I'll come back to the online people. You still can hear me, okay? By the way, I like to move a lot, so standing right there makes it so a little bit uncomfortable. But is it any way possible to move this up here? Okay, and it gets me closer. For some reason, when I stand so far from people, I feel like I'm yelling at you. And oh, this is so much better. Oh my goodness, now I feel that we can, look at this. Miss Irene, I can always touch her. Oh, this is so much better. Okay. So in Malaysia, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the other people. Okay, the other people. When couples are married and they're angry at one another, what do? Okay, I know this church is amazing and Pastor Malcolm has done an amazing job. And when I say when they're angry, I'm looking at you, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been angry at my spouse. And it's like, nobody has an answer because you said, I don't know what it's like. Pastor Malcolm and Irene, you've done such an amazing job. But the other couples that you know, right? Your family members, your neighbors, when they're angry, what do? Oh my goodness. I know it's so hard for you. I'm asking you to think about others, and you're like, I don't know what it's like. So what did they do? Anyone? They scream, they scream. What else? They Cold War, Cold War. That means zip, you're not hearing from me anymore. Okay? Does anybody ever, when you already lie in bed and you're angry, anybody ever does this? "Argh," turn from them? Anyone? Okay, that's what I did that night in June of last year. I was angry at my wife. She was angry. We're starting the Cold War, and I turned. I went "Argh," like this. And when you turn and you stop talking, your mind starts thinking. You're thinking, well, she did this wrong, she did this wrong, it was her mistake, and then she's thinking the same thing. He did this wrong, he did that wrong. It's all this mistake. So I'm turning, and I'm having all of these negative thoughts. But then I kept thinking, what kind of marriage do I want? Do I want this kind of marriage when I'm so angry with her and she is so angry with me? I said, no. I want the kingdom abundant marriage. And then immediately, I started turning back. I not only turned back, but I kept rolling. I rolled right on top of her. Okay. So if you saw the photo, she is shorter than me, she's smaller than me, but she's very strong, because you also saw another photo, she exercised a lot. Okay, she's very strong. So I rolled right on top of her, and I started tickling her face and tickling her tummy. She started laughing. We both started laughing. And all of the anger went away. It took us about 2 to 3 minutes to solve that problem. Because I know what kind of marriage I want. Do I want a broken marriage? Do I want an okay marriage? No. No, that's not what I want. I want the most incredible, amazing, abundant marriage. And so I make decision based on this principle. Love is a choice. What kind of marriage do I want? You see, if you and I choose that love, it is so much easier. If we want it, we're more willing to go for it. So when I work with couple, we begin with that. What kind of life, what kind of marriage do you want? Number one, principle one. Okay. There's only 4 principles that I'm going to teach you. It's going to be that simple. And it's going to be practical. Now, we're moving to principle number 2 now. Principle number 2 has to do with the number 1 reason for broken marriage. The number 1 reason for broken relationship. So if I were to ask you, what's the cause of broken marriage or broken relationship? Do you know the answer? Most people don't know the answer, but can we take a guess? What's the number 1 reason for broken marriage or broken relationship? Does anyone know? Anybody want to take a guess? I'm sorry, miscommunication? A lack of communication? That's a really good guess. If you look in the internet, you do a Google search, they'll give you the top 3. One is communication, finance, or lack of intimacy. But actually, those are the symptoms. It's not the root problem. It's just a symptom. Anybody else? The me, the I. Okay, that is true. The me and the I, it's part of the problem. It's part of the problem. It's not all of the problem. There's something else. The root problem for broken relationship. Broken heart? I'm not sure what that means from a Miss Chris. No love. The love is gone. No love. Okay. Oh, yes, no love. Oh, I got it. Um, actually, that seems like it might be it, but actually it's not. Let me tell you, and most people don't know this, the number one reason for broken relationship, it's people come into the relationship with so much hurt and pain from their past, the negative things in their heart. Now, where do we see this in the Bible? Okay? The Bible, we see it in a few different places. You remember when Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? What is the greatest commandment? Teacher, 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 what is the greatest commandment? Matthew 22, verse 37 through 39. Jesus said this. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And the second is like the first, love your neighbors as you love yourself. See, when a person has so much negative things in their heart, they're not able to love themselves. And so the second principle is that for us to love ourselves so that we can love our neighbors. If a person doesn't love themselves, it's going to be so hard for them to love another person. As a matter of fact, if you look at Ephesians 5, verse 28, Ephesians 5, verse 33, it tells us this, husband, love your wife as you love yourself. If a person does not love themselves, they cannot love their spouse. It's the number one cause of broken relationship because people come into the relationship and they have so much hurt. You know this expression, we have this expression in America, hurt people hurt people. People that have a lot of hurt will hurt others. Hurt people hurt people. So if you marry someone who has a lot of hurt, they don't love themselves. How can they love you? They cannot. It's the number one reason for broken relationship. So I do another training on how to restore marriages and families. And on this training, this is what I tell the people. Before I go to a church, I would tell them this. I said, if you find me any broken relationship, any broken family, any broken marriage, I will demonstrate for you that in 3 days' time, this family or marriage will be healed and restored for the Lord. Now, that is a very bold claim, extremely bold claim. Because if you think about it, if I say that at a church and in 3 days' time, the family doesn't get healed up, they will never invite me back. Not only that, I put the name of God to shame because I promised that God's going to do something and he doesn't do it. But how can I make this claim that in 3 days' time, you give me any broken marriage and family, I can see it restored? Okay? So the first time I conducted this training, it was in China. It was with some underground churches. And we had about over 100 in that training. And they found a couple, husband and wife, 6-year-old kid. Wives hate their husband. Wives hate the father. Often she would go to the kitchen. She takes a knife and try to slash at him. Now, some of us have bad relationship before, but we don't usually take a knife and try to slash at the other person. But this wife was slashing at her husband. She was so angry with him. So the first day that I got there, I haven't started the training. They introduced me to the couple. They have a 6-year-old daughter. And the girl said this. She said, am I qualified? Because I don't want to stay married to this man. I want to get a divorce. Am I qualified? And I asked her this question. I said, do you want more peace in your life? Do you want more of the kingdom life, more peace? She said, yes. I said, you're qualified. The condition is if a person wants more peace or more joy, more love, if they want that, she didn't even have to say, I want to stay in a marriage. I said, it doesn't matter. If you want more peace, you're qualified. So I said, okay. So the first day, I prayed for the husband in front of everybody. And the prayer was to help them get all of the junk from their hearts. You know, if a person has anger and hurt and pride and selfishness, the I, if a person has the sin, the temptation and all these things, if a person believes in the lie, they're not good enough, if a person is depressed, how can they have a good marriage? How can they? If they have all of these things in their heart, how can they obey the word of God? Many of you here are leaders. I'm looking at you. I recognize you. I know some of you. You're leaders at this church. And I'm sure you have couples who have come to you and they have marriage problem. And they're angry at one another. So the husband is angry at the wife is angry at the husband, and they come to you and you tell them, because we're Christian, all you need is just obey the Bible. Husband, just love your wife as Christ loved the church. Wife, just submit to your husband. And because they're Christian at this church, and you tell them that, they obey you right immediately, right? Don't they? Don't they? When you tell them, husband, just love your wife as Christ loved the church. Wife, just submit to your husband, because that's what the Bible say. Can they do it? They can't. How can they? They can't. Because of the anger and hurt. You see, when we have all of this anger and hurt and sin in our lives, in our heart, we cannot choose the abundant life so easily. We can't. We can't just say, well, let me just obey what God said. Let me just love my wife. Let me just submit to my husband. We can't do that because of all of the negative things in our heart. So back to that first time I did the training. So the first day of the training, I prayed for the husband. I helped him get rid of all of the junk in his heart. The third day, I prayed for the wife in front of everybody, and I helped her get rid of the negative things from her heart. And in the process of it, she saw a vision. She said, everything's dark, like dark clouds. And then light came in, and it separated the cloud into two, and light separated. And then she saw herself standing with her husband, holding his hands and holding the daughter's hand. And she started crying. She said, husband, come on up. The husband came up, and they hugged one another. And she said, I don't want a divorce anymore, because the Lord showed me that he doesn't want us to be divorced. And so they hugged and they cried, and everybody cried with them because the church knew them. They knew the situation. That marriage was not only healed within 3 days' time, it was healed within 3.5 hours' time. Because I got their hearts cleansed. The first marriage, broken marriage that I worked with, first broken marriage. First time I had a couple whose marriage was broken, they were referred to me. Here's the situation. Here was the situation. The husband was having an affair with another woman. The wife said, I don't want to stay in this marriage anymore. She wants a divorce. So the wife's mom, who knew me, said, can you minister to my daughter and my son-in-law? I said, sure. So they came to see me. And I spent, an hour talking to them. And then, okay, let's help you get rid of these stones from your heart so that you can love yourself more. And so the next week, a couple of us prayed for the husband. And then the week after that, a couple of us prayed for the lady. That's all it took. Each one of them 2 hours each. The week the wife got healed up, the marriage was restored. When the marriage was restored, guess what the wife did? The exact week when the heart and the marriage was restored, the wife started ministering to the woman that had the affair with her husband. Now, you don't hear this kind of testimony too often. Come on. You know, how many wife would minister to the mistress of her husband? Come on. That's an amazing testimony. You see? Now, somebody had said communication was a major issue. That's not it. Let me give you one more testimony. Okay. This lady had called me and said, oh, my marriage is broken. My husband is cheating on me. He never communicates with me. And he's buying things for probably other girls and other women. And so she said, come over, please. My husband is here. I want us to talk. So I go there and I visit them. And here's the situation. The lady used to be a prostitute. Okay? The man met her when she was prostituting. So they became friends, and eventually they became Christian and they married. Now, after they married, things were okay for a few months, and then things got bad. And then they stopped communicating, and then they start having financial issue, and they start having no love and a lack of intimacy. So when I went to the house, you know, they took me to the bedroom and they showed me a bank statement, and she said this. She said, look, my husband is cheating on me. He's spending all kinds of money, and I don't know who's spending it for, but it looks like he's buying some gift. I bet you it's for another lady. And we never communicate. We have this problem, we have that problem, we have that problem. I told him, I said, wait. We're not going to deal with any of those problems. No. What we're going to do, and let's get your hearts cleansed. So a couple of us later that week prayed for the man, and then later the week after we prayed for the woman. That's all it took with that couple. They got healed up. And I never had to deal with communication. I never had to deal with finance. I didn't see them for 2 more years. I saw them 2 years later, and I saw the wife and the husband. I said, how are you guys? They said, the last 2 years have been so incredible and amazing. They said, we never communicated better. We never loved better. It's just so incredible and amazing. You see, the number one root problem in marriage, number one, each of us come into it with a lot of hurt, a lot of sin, a lot of lies, a wrong value system we have in our heart. So when I go, not only to restore marriages, but when I want to go, and even if people's marriages are okay, I say, are you okay with okay? If you're okay with okay, then okay, we leave it at that. But if you want more, if you want an abundant marriage, if you want the kingdom marriage, let's get our hearts cleansed. So this is principle 2. Principle 1, love is a choice. What kind of marriage do you want? If you're okay with okay, stay okay. You know, I said this before. If Jesus tells me he wants to give me a life that is okay, if Jesus said, I've come that you might have life, Miss Irene, and your life will be okay. If Jesus said that, I said, okay, I'll stay with okay, because that's what Jesus wants to give me. But Jesus doesn't want to give us an okay life. He wants to give you and I an abundant kingdom life. So the question, do you want it? If we want it, we go for it. I want it, so I decide to go for it. And the first thing we did, Kay and I, we get our hearts cleansed. Both of us. Cleanse our heart. Because once the heart is cleansed, look, if we have a lot of anger and hurt and we get rid of it, would we not have more love, peace, and joy? If we can get rid of the anger and the hurt and the sin, would we not have more love, peace, and joy in our hearts? Of course. See, if a couple is so angry with one another and you tell them, obey the word, they can't. But if they have love, peace, and joy, and you say, obey the word, it's so much easier. You see? So much easier. Does that make sense? Okay. here's the beautiful thing. You know, I've been coming here ever since 2017 and 2019, and I had to skip a few years, but I'm back here this year, and I am so thankful to the Lord to coming back because, you know, I get to reconnect with friends and, you know, meet new friends and talk to you, some of you, and go to visit some of you in your home and having meal together, laughing and joking and eating some of the amazing feasts that you have prepared, you know, and staying at Dr. Houghton and, you know, Sister Trey Lynn's home, and they've been such a blessing. And, you know, just getting to know them even more and loving them loving upon me. Oh my goodness, they really have shown me how to love. They just love upon me and love upon me. It's been incredible. And the other night, you know, going to Brother Ho and Miss Nancy's home and them loving upon me, it's been amazing. And I really appreciate spending time. And tonight, the wonderful time with some of our Chinese congregation friend, and it's been amazing. It's been beautiful. The first two principles. What kind of marriage? Love is a choice. What kind of marriage do you want? What kind of life do you want? And then number two, if you understand the root issue, it's the heart, get our hearts cleansed. Some people think this. Some people think, well, I don't have too much problem, especially men, by the way. Men, we don't think we have so much problem. We think our wives have the problem. Men, you know, men, we don't have so much problem. Right, men? You know, even, you know, it's because of our forefather, Adam, right? Adam didn't think he had the problem. It was the woman that you gave me, God. It was her fault. So there's something about men where we think it's not us, okay, that we don't have the problem. Okay, so these are the first two principles. If you want to begin that journey of an amazing, amazing marriage, get your hearts cleansed. It doesn't matter how many years you've been married. Maybe some of you might say from a 1 to a 10, I'm a 5 or I'm a 6. And if you're okay with it, you can stay with that. But what if you can get to an 8 or a 9 or a 9.2 or a 9.6? Do you want that? I know I want it. What if you can say, and this is true, I am not teasing you, I'm not joking with you, I'm not saying this because I'm doing this teaching, but if you ask me, I would tell you, I never thought marriage can be so good. I never thought it was possible that marriage can be so good. Oh my goodness. My goodness. Okay, I know you can't see this, okay, but when I was in KL, I had been away from home for over a week now already, and so hold on, let me get my. So I've been away for over a week, and I started missing my wife. You know, I didn't plan on coming to 3 countries on this trip. It's a 3.5-week trip. Originally, it was only to be a 2.5-week trip, Malaysia and Bangladesh, but something happened in Sri Lanka. I had sent another trainer there, but 3 days before the trip, he couldn't make it due to some urgent matter that came up. So he texted me 3 days before the trip. He said, I can't make it to Sri Lanka. I said, oh no, that means if I add another trip, it'll be another week and it'll be 3.5 weeks. And I don't like to be away from my wife for 3.5 weeks. So after a week or so of missing my wife, I had a wallpaper. So I said, I gotta change this wallpaper. So here's my new wallpaper. See, this new wallpaper, it's kind of hard to see, but it's just she's sitting there before we got married. We were having dinner or something at this Japanese restaurant, but the wallpaper, she's sitting there staring at me. And I said, okay, I miss her now. Now she stares at me all the time. Yeah. I love my wife so much. I never thought it can be so good. It's been so amazing. So these are the two principle. Now, principle number 3 and number 4. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about principle number 3. We won't finish, and then we'll take a little break and we'll come back. But principle number 3, I was talking to Pastor Malcolm and we were talking to a brother today, and I was explaining to him, after you get our hearts cleansed, okay, then we move on to principle number 3. Principle number 3 has to do with this. You have to understand the differences between men and women. And the Bible teaches us the difference. Let's say here in Malaysia, what's the differences between little boy growing up and little girl growing up? What do little girls like to do? What do little boys like to do? Here in Malaysia. Can you help me? What do little boys and little girls like to do here? This is not a hard question. Anyone? They like to play. What do little boys like to play with, and what do little girls like to play with? Boy play football. So the boy like to play with sports. They like to play football. What else? Oh my goodness, you guys are thinking maybe your children are all grown up. You forgot what they like to do when they were little. Anyone else? Miss Sue, want to take a guess? What do little boy or girl like to play with? Anything? Anyone? Yes. They sent something? Oh, phone. Okay. Okay, let's see this, all right? Is it true that little boy like to play more with toys and maybe sports or maybe with cars? They like to wrestle, okay? They like to compete, they like to play balls, and they like to win. What do little girls like to play with in general? Little girls like to play with dolls. They like to play dress up. They like to play with the kitchen, right? So as they get older, when they become teenagers, which group like to play with games more? The video games or, the console game? Which group? The boys. Which group like to talk more on the phone? The girls. By the way, men sometimes don't realize this, but do you know that women like to talk more than men? Did you know that? Okay. Do you know how much more a woman talks than a man? 3 times. See, the average American man speaks 10,000 words a day. The average woman speaks 30,000 words a day. And if a man goes to work and a woman stay home, it's big trouble because a man uses 10,000 words at work. When he comes home, he's got nothing left. The wife has 20,000 more words to go. And it's a big issue. But it's the same problem all over the world. Women speak more than men. Why? Because men like to do things, we like to conquer, we like to solve things, we like to get things done. Women in general speak more words, but women express more of their feelings and their emotion. That's why women love little girls, teenagers. They love to talk on the phone more. The guys just like to play the game. So if you have a teenage boy, they play this one game and they beat the level, even though they spent 2 hours, but they want to beat the next level too. They don't care if they play another 2 hours because they want to win. Now, push it up a notch when they're in college. When they get older, become more an adult, which group like to read romance novels more? The girls, the women, the lady. They like to read romance novel. Okay, now this is not a good thing, but in America, college guys, do you know what college guys think of? College guys think of a lot of time, they think about girls or women. But when they think about girls or women, what do they think about? They think about, how can I win that girl as a girlfriend, or how can I win that girl sexually? Okay, just being honest with you, a lot of guys think that. How can I win the person? Now, the girls, in the meantime, they love romance. Why do women love romance? Why? Why do women love romance? And what is romance? Most men have no idea what romance is. If I ask the women, is your husband romantic? Very few women will raise their hand. Do you know what romance is? If you do a search, a Google search, what is romance? This is what it said. Romance, okay, a Google search, the mystery and excitement regarding to love. Something mysterious, something so exciting, but it has to do with love. And women love romance because it has to do with love, you see. So what's the difference between men and women? Women gravitates towards love and relationship. It's all about love and relationship for women. What about men? Men wants to win. Men wants respect. So God knew that when he created men and women. That's why he gave us a command. Husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Why? Because the greatest need for a woman is love. The greatest need for a woman is love. The greatest need for a man is respect. Wife, submit to your husband. Ephesians 5:25. Ephesians 5:33. Wife, respect your husband. And before that, husband, love your wife as you love yourself. So God knew the greatest need for a man is to be respected. The greatest need for a woman is to be loved. That's why he gave us these commands. Now, if I were to ask you, what is romance? If I were to ask the women during the dating time, was your husband romantic? When you were dating, was your husband romantic? I wonder if I should ask the ladies in this group, when you were dating, was your husband romantic? So, are you raising your hand, Dr. Haltert?
No.
Oh, the wife is not here. Now, I remember I was doing a training at KL, and we had about 70 women, and most of them were married. So I asked the women, when you were dating before you got married, was your husband romantic? Almost all of them raised their hands. Okay. And then I said, after the wedding, after the honeymoon, was your husband romantic? 3 raised their hands. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because some women would say, well, it's because my husband is not romantic. I said, wait a minute. They're not romantic. They were really romantic when they were dating you. Why? Because men, we want to do things. We want to win. We want to conquer. So if you're dating, you're chasing after the girl. You're chasing after them. So what does it take to chase after a girl? If she likes food, you buy her food. If she likes this kind of, or if she likes durian, you buy her durian. You don't care if it's in season or out season, right? Who cares if it's in season? My girl wants durian, she gets durian. Oh, she liked this food? Well, we buy her this food. If she wants to go out, we go out. If she likes flour, we buy her flour. If she wants to talk 5 hours, we talk 5 hours. Because men knows how to win. We know how to conquer. We know we go after the girl. But then after the wedding, after the honeymoon, this amazing phenomenon takes place. The men stop chasing after the woman. After the marriage, after the wedding, the romance turn off. It's like, whoop, gone. And then we say our husband is not romantic, but is it really true? Is it true that men are not romantic? Is that really true? The answer is really no. Because if the man is angry with the wife and he wants to chase after another woman, can he be romantic? You betcha. You betcha. You betcha. If a man is angry at the wife and he wants to chase after another woman, he is so romantic. It's not that we're not romantic. We know how to try to win. We know how to try to get that girl. We know it. We know it. So I decided because I know what kind of marriage I want. I decided I don't care if 99% of the men stop chasing after my wife. I'm going to keep chasing after her every day. That's why I celebrate every day with her. That's why we're celebrating number 1370, day of anniversary with her. That's why the Lord told me, have 3 honeymoons with her every year. Now, some of the men are getting nervous here. Whoa, 3 honeymoons a year. I'm not saying that you have to take your wife on 3 honeymoons a year. That's very specifically what the Lord told me to do. But it comes down to this, us men, because some of you are parents, some of you are grandparents. What kind of life, what kind of marriage do you want? What kind of life, what kind of marriage do you want for your children to have? What kind of family do you want them to have? What kind of family you want them to grow into? Because if you start living it, then your children will see it and you can model it for them, and your grandchildren can see it and you can live it out for them so that they too can have the most amazing life and the most amazing marriage. So the question for us, what do we want, man? Because God made us to be winners and conquerors and competitors. Why do we stop chasing? Why do we stop going for the greatest gift that God can give us here on this earth outside of Jesus? Why do we have to stop chasing after our wife? Because all the other men do it? No. I don't care if 99% of the men stop chasing after their wife. I'm going to keep chasing after her. That's why. Principle number 3. It's very simple. God told us, love and respect. We need to grow in love and respect for the other person. Very simple. Love and respect for the other person. The only problem is some of us don't know how to do that. So we're going to take a little break, but when we come back, I'm going to give you very simple application of how to love and respect the other person. Because if you begin to learn how to do this and you apply it in your life, 3 principles so far, it's not hard. I mean, it's so easy that we can remember it if we want to. Number 1, love is a choice. What kind of love, what kind of marriage do you want? And by the way, if you're here alone without your spouse, don't go home and tell them, oh, you know, Pastor Seumean did this for, let's say if you're a wife here and your husband's not here, don't go home and say, Pastor Seumean did this for his wife. I think you should do that for me. It doesn't work that way, okay? It doesn't work that way. It's for the commands are for you to live out for yourself, okay? All right, 3 principles so far. It begins with us. Look, if you desire to have the most amazing marriage, it begins with that. If you don't want it and you settle for okay, there's not much you can do. If you're okay, you're okay. Two, if you want that, you have to get your hearts cleansed. And the beautiful thing about it, we have people in this church that can help. I can help. I can even help you when I'm, away in America, and I have teams of people that can help. We can help you get rid of this junk from your heart. Maybe you don't have much, maybe it's only a little bit, but that little bit can move you from an okay, above okay, to the most amazing life. Principle 2, it has to do with, unless we love ourselves, we can't love our spouse very well. And number 3, principle 3, we learn to grow in love and respect. Now, I will show you after break practically how to grow love and respect. Okay? So let's take a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 9:25. All right. Let's see. During break, I had 3 very interesting questions. And so I would like to address those questions for you. So I'll start out with the first question from our Brother Ho. And Brother Ho had asked me, he said, even if you are able to remove the stones and the anger and the hurt, but isn't it that, let's say if you get rid of the anger that you might have towards your wife or your husband, for example, but isn't it true that a week later you can get angry with them again, right? And that's true. So it's a great, great question. But what it is that when we get our hearts cleansed from our past, the next time something happens, if we learn God's way to handle it, we can handle it much, much better. But if we keep the anger in from our past, those things build up. So that when our spouse would do something, even though it's minor, it turns out to be much bigger than what it really is. You see, so if we can get our hearts cleansed from the things from the past, and our wife does, or our spouse does something small, we don't get as blown up. It's smaller, and we can deal with it more effectively. But these things still happen. I'm not saying that if we get our hearts cleansed, our spouse will be perfect. I mean, that would be amazing. Or if we get our hearts cleansed, that will be perfect. We won't be, okay? However, when we get our hearts cleansed, it's easier for us to put the word of God in our heart, to live it out. We can love our spouse better. We can respect them better. We can communicate better because our hearts is more cleansed. And we might need to let go of more things in the future as well. So great question. And then the other 2 questions were somewhat related. Someone had asked me, it said, is this something that you just learn, this principle? Is this something that you learned just recently throughout these years? And a similar question to that, what about your first wife? Did you apply that with your first wife as well? And the question was, is it because you only married a new woman that it get a lot better? So great question, okay? And so what happened was this, because this principle that I'm teaching you, I really wish I had learned it when I was younger, but unfortunately I had no idea, nobody taught me. I've been to some marriage conferences and things like that, but it was still, I didn't quite understand it. So my first marriage was not as good. I loved my first wife and she loved me, but we didn't have the same kind of marriage because we both had a lot of hurt in our heart. Some of you know that when I was growing up and I was a little boy, I was sexually abused by relatives. And I was, again, when I came to the US, I was sexually abused again. And by the way, the relative that sexually abused me, this relative was the one that gave us the free cruise for honeymoon number 12, because in the last couple of years, we've been ministering to the relative. So I have no hurt towards this relative at all. And they don't know the Lord. But we try to bless them, and they were the one that called. She didn't even know anything about our honeymoon. They just said, "Do you want a free cruise?" People give us free honeymoons without realizing it's our honeymoon that we'll be using for that. They said, "Do you want a free this? Do you want a free that? A free lake house for a couple of days?" Sure. Honeymoon number 12. Sure. Honeymoon number 13. So that's how it works for us. The Lord provides for us that way. But the thing was, I did not understand this principle before. And so I wasn't able to apply it. And it's true, I started learning about these principles. I learned about the removing stone principle when I was here. That I've learned a number of years. So I started doing it myself. But as I started marrying, as I started dating Kay and courting her, I started learning about this other principle in the Bible. And some of which I learned after I married her. And because I learned it, I started applying it, and I started seeing amazing results. So, Brother Seumean and I were talking about that because if I didn't know this principle and I didn't apply it, I would still be where I used to be with my first marriage. Because I would have lived my same old life. And I wish I had learned it earlier. So the good news is that, maybe you never heard of it before, but if you learn it now and you start applying, you will get the same result. How do I know that? Because I teach it to other people who have broken marriage, and I gave you examples. And they started applying it. They start seeing amazing transformation in their lives. Some from broken to abundant marriage, some from okay to abundant marriage. So we all have that choice, you see. And keep this in mind, it's not just only for us, but it's for our children and our grandchildren. Because if you learn this, you can teach it to them. If you don't learn it, you won't be able to teach it to them, you see. So this is the beautiful thing about it. It's so amazing. Okay. Any other question? Those were great comments and great question. And sometimes, I don't think about every question that people have, so your question is very helpful, not only for me, but for everybody else. So great comments and question. Okay, we're good so far? Okay, now let me share with you how I learned principle number 3. Okay, principle number 3, how did I learn to love my wife? And then how she learned to respect me. Okay, so after we got married, actually, I started learning it. This was 10 months into our courtship, our dating time. I was in Malaysia, and she was in Japan. Now, this was 10 months. We've been dating for 10 months, and we had our first argument that time. And it's argument number 1. I always remember argument number 1. You're dating for 10 months, and everybody's so happy. She's happy, I'm happy. And we're preparing for the wedding in Japan. And I didn't realize Japanese weddings are so expensive. Because when I got married the first time, I spent $3,000 US. And so Kay and I talked, we said, well, maybe we can spend $5,000, for our wedding in Japan, and we'll use the church and everything. Because I'm usually pretty good with money. I don't spend much money, okay? I'm very resourceful. I try to use it to minister to people. And so we said, let's use 5,000. So one day, in January 2019, okay, she texted me the spreadsheet of how much it's going to cost, for the wedding. While I was there for the engagement, you saw it with the kimono, we had went to look for places to have weddings. We couldn't do it at the church because we're expecting over 130 people. And for Japan, that's a big wedding. Japan, the average wedding is like 30 people or so. So For 130 people at a wedding, it's very big. And so we started looking because her church couldn't house that many people. So we went to the first hotel and we said, we don't want the most extravagant, but we don't want the cheapest, somewhere maybe a little bit closer to the middle. We said, how much does it cost? They gave us the price. One person, 400 US dollars. I was like, oh my goodness. My budget of 5,000, I can invite 12 people to our wedding. So I had this budget in my mind, 5,000. And Kay looked and she looked and she looked and she looked, but she couldn't find anything so good. And then she thought she found a good one and she sent it to me. And I opened the spreadsheet. It was $20,000 US. Now, maybe if I planned for 20,000 or 15,000, it's not so bad. I was planning for 5. So when I saw the number, the first thought that came to my mind was, wow, this is so expensive. Now, she was already frustrated at that time because the wedding was on June. We have less than 4.5 months to go. We have people traveling from Taiwan and Hong Kong and different parts of the world, the US and everything. And where she lived, if you don't have a place where you're gonna have, people have to get their flight, they have to get their bus and the train and all of these things. So she was really frustrated. And so when she said that, and when I said, this is, I forgot the exact word, this is so high or something like that, she made this comment. She said, you don't understand Japanese culture. Maybe you should marry a Japanese woman. And when she said that, for whatever reason, I was hearing something differently. I was saying, wait a minute, Kay, we're not married and you already want to divorce me. I was like, what? Well, what do you mean I should marry a Japanese woman? And I got angry with her. I was like, we're not even married and you don't want to marry me anymore. You want to divorce me. What do you mean? So I was angry with her and she was already very frustrated. But I teach, in the removing stone prayer, we need to deal with this thing as quickly as possible. Don't go to bed angry. You give the devil a foothold. So we try to deal with it. And we thought we dealt with it and we went to sleep that night. The next night after the training, I came back and I called her and we talked. She was fine. She was good. She said, if you want me to find another place, I'm fine. But I was still angry. And now I'm going to share with you my hall of shame, okay? I was still angry with her. I kept thinking, what do you mean I shouldn't marry a Japanese woman? And for some reason, I was so hurt by it. And so I was so angry. And then I did something that I should not have done. All right. Now, let me explain. Because when we started the relationship, okay, and I would speak to her when I came back to America and she was in Japan, when we started that relationship, first I started using this phone, to make online video calls with her. And it was so good. We would talk 1 to 2 hours every day. So after the first week, I said, no, this is not enough. The real estate is too small. I upgraded to my laptop, you see. So I put my laptop up and I would be looking at her in the laptop, and every day we would talk for 1 to 2 hours, and then she became more and more beautiful to me because when we started the relationship, there was no love. I didn't love her. I barely know her. I only talked to her for 10 minutes, you see. And but the more I look at her, every day, we talk 1, 2 hours every day. Every day I grew more in love with her. And I remember that when I looked at her, she became more and more beautiful to me. Every day for 10 straight months, it's like, oh, why is she becoming more beautiful? Oh, this is so good. But then the 10th month, when we had our first argument, about the cost of the wedding, I did a very foolish thing. So I don't recommend any men do this. But, when I looked at her, I said, when I was angry with her, I said, Kay, you don't look beautiful to me anymore. Okay, bad thing, bad thing. Sorry, ladies, bad thing. Okay. But I realized this. Look, you know, you can marry someone that the world might think is the most beautiful, but when you have the anger and the hurt in your heart, everything changes. It's like they don't look beautiful anymore. For 10 months, she grew in beauty. One anger, the beauty just went just like this. It's gone. And Kay, oh my goodness, I need to bring her here because I want to introduce her to you all. She is such an amazing lady. You know what she said to me? She said, Seumean, you take all the time you need to process this. I will support you. And as she was saying that to me, you know, I had this verse in my heart, Ephesians 5:25, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. And I was thinking, all I could think about that night when I was angry with her, all the negative things that pop into my head. And then when she said that, take all the time you need, I began to realize I haven't loved her the way Christ loved the church. So I said, Lord, this is not true. Even though we're not married, I'm not loving her like this. I want this kind of love for her. And instantly that night, zoop, all my anger toward her was gone. Just like that, gone. And then I looked at her in that laptop again. Oh, so beautiful again. It's like, oh, so beautiful again. You see? It was so beautiful. And then eventually, okay, we got married and she moved to Houston. And I've been meditating on this verse. I've been meditating on it for 1,370 days, 1370. Okay. And the verse says, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Now, Kay moved into the home. And when I meditate on the word of God, I memorize it, and then I talk to the Lord about it, and then I reflect it on my life. So when I meditate, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church, what I did was this. I didn't just say, well, how do I love Kay? How does Jesus love? I didn't just say that. I remember when I started practically apply this, Kay was washing the dishes, okay? And I realized our cultures are different. You know, Japanese culture, the Asian culture, the Chinese culture, you don't hold hands, you don't hug. But I've been living and I've been teaching about the kingdom life and the kingdom culture. I know the kingdom culture talk about love. So I said, how do I love Kay? And I was willing to break my culture if my culture goes against what the Bible said. If my culture goes against the kingdom culture, I'm willing to break it. So I saw her. I remember this clearly. She was washing the dishes. And I said, okay, let me try something. Never done this before. I went behind her and I just gave her a hug. How do I love my wife when she's washing the dishes? So let me try. I gave her a hug from the back and she went like this. I said, oh, okay. I know she loves this. I know she likes it. I know she likes it when she's doing the dishes and I give her a hug from the back. I said, oh, this is a good thing. I'll do more of it. So I've been doing more of that. So I learned along the way. See, if you love someone, you need to love them the way they feel, the way they receive love. The way they feel and the way they receive love. So love is not what you always think love is, it's how they receive love. That's why we have so many parents. Let's say if you have 3 kids or 4 kids, you try to love your kids the same way. And then as they grow up, one of the kids say, how come you love brother more? How come you love sister more? And you say, wait, I love you all the same way, but they don't receive it the same way because they need to receive love in a different way. And I began to realize that, to try to love Kay the way she needs to be loved. So I'm sharing that story in one of the cell group, and one brother came up to me the next week. He said, Pastor, it doesn't work. I said, what do you mean it doesn't work? He said, my wife was washing the dishes. I gave her a hug. She didn't feel love at all. She said, if you wash the dishes, I would feel love. So she didn't feel love. You see? So you have to learn to love them the way they need to be loved. Now, if Kay feels loved, if I wash the dishes, I would do dishes for her. You see? So that was one. And then remember, I said, when she wakes up, I go, wow, because the Lord placed it in my heart because I want her to feel love when she wakes up in the morning without saying, oh, I got to put makeup on. Oh, I got to wash myself. I wanted her to know that I love her no matter what she looks like, no matter what time of the day. So I started practicing that. She gets up in the morning, wow, wow. And so I've been wowing her for many days. Now, I don't wow every day, but I do quite often, okay, quite often. Then I began to ask the Lord, how do I love her when we go to sleep at night? I find out she loves holding hands. So I said, okay, I don't mind holding hands to go to sleep. We hold hands, we go to sleep. And by the way, hugging, wowing, holding hand, it cost me $0. Man, I didn't even have to spend any money, you see? But the process of it, Kay started feeling more and more love. Okay. And then I started asking, how do I love her when she has free time? That's when I realized she likes doing adventurous stuff. She likes hiking. She likes mountain biking. I mean, oh my goodness. She likes exercising, all of the things that I don't like to do, you know? But because she likes it, I go exercise with her. Because she likes hiking, I go hiking with her. Because she likes, but she does the same thing with me. She knows I love fishing, so she goes fishing with me. You see? And because she likes it, I do the same thing with my kids because they love it. I do it with them. You know, my kids one day, a couple of years ago, they came to me, both of them, Dad, you always do the things we like. This weekend, we want to do whatever you like to do. You see? And I grow relationship with my kids that way. All right? Now, I do spend a lot of time with my kids. I spend a lot of time with my wife. I spend a lot of time fishing. I am very busy. I travel 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks a month, 11 months a year. I minister to churches down in Houston. I have, right now, when I'm at home, during COVID, for example, 30 discipleship group every week. But I'm never short on time. Never short on time. Time is never a problem for me. I always go fishing every week. I always spend time with my wife. I always spend time with my kids. I don't get stressed and I still get everything done. Time is never an issue for me because I learned the principle of how to have more time based on the Word of God. Now, I'm not teaching that today. I might teach it on Saturday as part of discipleship, but it's more for the advanced leaders. You know, how to help leaders to not worry about time. The Bible teaches us how we can have more time in our life. It's so incredible and it's so easy, but yet so many people struggle with time. They say, I'm so busy, I have no time. You want to talk about busy. I understand busyness. You know, I understand. I used to pastor a church. I used to work. We homeschool our kids. My late wife had cancer, all of these things. And even all my travels and everything now, never short on time. For many years now, I'm never short on time. And I don't get stressed very easily. And the Bible teaches us how to do that. I do a lot of things based on the principle and what I see in the Bible. I live a very simple life. Those of you who know me, I'm pretty simple, right? I dress simply, I live simply, but my simple way of living is this. If I see it in the Bible, I believe it. So because I see that Jesus wants to give me an abundant life, I don't say, well, because my life is broken, Jesus is lying to me. I don't say that. I said, if Jesus wants to give me an abundant life and I'm not living it, how do I find my way to live the life he wants me to have? How do I have an abundant marriage? How do I have an abundant family? How do I have an abundant ministry? How do I not get stressed? How do I have peace in the midst of tribulation? Because he said he wants to give me all of this. If he said so, there's a way. The question is how. Once you figure out the principle and the how, it becomes very easy. But if you don't know it, it's very hard. If you don't know the principle for marriage and raising family and overcoming stress and dealing with conflict, life is so hard, you see? But it's quite easy once you learn it. And now I'm just trying to teach it to people. I wish I learned this many years ago, but I haven't. I've been learning it the last few years. So I started learning on how to love my wife. And it's like, how do I love her when? How do I love her when she's angry with me? How do I love her when I'm angry with her? A year after we got married, Kay became depressed for the first time. I was so shocked because she is such a happy lady. She's so happy every time. But she got depressed. I was like, I couldn't believe she was depressed. I was so shocked by it. And I discovered, the reason for her depression. When she was a little girl, she was exposed to many bad things, and she never fully dealt with it in the right way. But I remember when she was depressed for like 4 days the first time. And for the first 2 days, I was loving to her. I was kind to her. I was loving to her. But she still was depressed, and she didn't want to listen to me. And us men, we know the answer, right? We always tell our wife, if you do this, you get good result. So I keep telling her, okay, you got to do this, but she won't listen to me. And on the third day, I started getting frustrated, and I started getting angry. You put yourself in this situation. You don't want to listen. You da-da-da-da. And I became angry. It happened a few times, maybe about 3 times. She got depressed 3 times. I'm good for a few days. I don't get angry easily. I can take several days, and then after there's a certain threshold, and it gets to that threshold, then I start getting a little bit angry. And then I realized after the 3rd time, I said, this is no good. So I started asking the Lord, how do I love Kay when she's depressed? How do I love her? Not just for 2 days, but how do I love her for 3 days or 4 days or 5 days? About a year or so ago, she had her biggest bout of depression. It lasted like 8 days or so. And then the Lord started teaching me how to love her from day 1 through day 8, maybe even day 9. Finally, we got to the root of it all, and she was set free. But she came to me and she said this, she said, you were so loving to me for all of those days, because I learned how to love her even when she was depressed for 8 or 9 days. So I just keep asking the Lord, how do I love her when this? How do I love her when this? How do I love her when I'm angry? It's just like when I turn on my bed, I'm angry with her. How do I love her when I'm angry with her? Do I want to keep it like this? Do I want this kind of life? I decided I don't want that. Let's turn back and roll on top and do some silly things. Because the silly things of tickling her face and tickling her tummy broke the ice. Because love returned. I don't mind doing silly things if we can have more love, peace, and joy in our life. I don't mind hugging to break my culture if it makes my wife feel more love. You see, honeymoon number 5. Honeymoon number 5. All of her honeymoon had been so great except honeymoon number 5. Honeymoon number 5, everything was going so well. And we wanted to end it with a bang. We said, let's go get a nice breakfast, get some French crepes. And we're ordering breakfast, and the French crepe came. And then she started sharing something with me, and from her heart. And when she shared with me, what I heard, that she was blaming me for her problem. Men hate to be blamed because we like to solve problems. And when you blame us, women, if you blame men, we hate it because it shows, for us, we feel like you're not respecting us. And that's why we always want to give you an answer. Here, do this, here's a solution. So when she started talking, I thought she was blaming me. And then I got hurt by it. But she said, I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to share my heart. But I said, when you share your heart, you're blaming me. She said, I'm not. And we got into an argument just because of that. But because of that, because she just said to me, I just want you to listen. I realized, I began to ask the Lord, how do I love Kay when she wants me to listen to her? How do I love her when she wants me to listen to her? And I start saying, okay, Okay, maybe, every night we can set 10 p.m. and we can talk and I can listen to you. We tried that. But eventually we got to a place where whenever Kay wanted to talk to me and me to listen, she always asked me this, do you have some time? I would like to talk. Whether I'm watching my YouTube or I'm doing my work, I put it down and say, Kay, yes, let's talk. And I just start doing that. Sometimes she needs 1 minute or 2 or 5 or 15. And I learn how to love my wife when she wants me to listen to her, when she wants to talk. So in such a way, I learn how to love Kay in situation when there are different situations of life, you see. So it's situational. Now, Pastor Malcolm and I were talking about the 5 love languages earlier today, and I somewhat agree with the 5 love languages, but somewhat I disagree with it a little bit. Number 1, there's more than 5 love languages, more. Number 2, everybody needs all 5 plus more, and it's situational. See, like you might say, Kay doesn't feel love to be served. Well, when she has a lot of time and I say, Kay, can I cook? She said, no need, no need, no need. You do your stuff. But when she's very busy and she doesn't have much time and she has to go out, I say, Kay, can I? Oh, she said, I feel so loved. It's situational. So I don't really worry about a person's love language. For me, I don't worry about it, but I try to get to know what makes them feel love when this situation. What makes my wife feel love? What makes my children feel love when this thing happened? You see. And whatever that is, I just discovered recently, my son just told me recently, just a few months ago, he said, Dad, when I was growing up, I really needed to talk. Now, I didn't expect a boy needing to talk so much. And he said, I would feel so much love, and I didn't realize that. I only realized it a few months ago because when he was growing up, I didn't love him the way he needed. He needed to talk. And I didn't spend that much time with him, talking with him from that level. But I just discovered that a couple of months ago. So I'm starting to talk to him more and loving him more because that's what he needs. It makes him feel loved like that. He's 21 now. You see? Why? Why? Because I know the kind of marriage I want. I know the kind of family I want. You see? And tomorrow, when you learn about the principle for raising children, my goodness, there's only 4 principles for raising children. From little children to teenagers to adult children, only 4. That applies to all of that. If you learn it and you apply it, you'll see amazing result in your kids. Even if your kids are older now and you learn it and you can pass it on to them, they can impact their children, their grandchildren. It's not even that hard, okay? Now, Kay, from her perspective, by the way, both men and women, we need both love and respect, right? It's just that in general, a woman needs love more, a man needs respect more. But we need both, okay? And Kay learned something. What Kay learned and how to respect me and how to love me better, she discovered that if I'm not feeling good and she's not feeling good, or if she's angry or I'm angry, and she sees something wrong in me, she doesn't share it with me until after we're calmed down. She's been so good at that and she doesn't try to change me, but she tried to encourage me. And, she doesn't, because to be honest with you, I think many things are easy. The spiritual thing, the emotional things for me are easy. There's one thing that's hard for me, the physical thing. I have a hard time fixing things. at house, fixing the car, I have a hard time exercising. It's been like that for many years. This is one of my weaknesses. And Kay knows that. So in the early days, she kept trying to get me to exercise. You know, you need to do this, you need to do this. She found out it doesn't work. You know, sometimes as women, you want your man to change and you keep telling them, do this, do this, do this, do this, but it doesn't work. So Kay, instead, she came up, number one, she doesn't tell me when I'm not feeling well. She doesn't tell me much at all, but rather she find way to encourage me. You know, like with exercise. She can out-exercise me. My daughter can too. They're amazing. You know, they have great energy and all of that. So she found the level that I can do. And then she got everything set up and said, Seumean, you know, I have some YouTube I found, and you want to join me? Of course, you know, I love doing things with Kay, even though I don't like to exercise, because if she does it, I love to do it with her. So I said, okay. So she got me exercising with her at a level that I can handle, and we do it together, and without her pushing me that you have to change, you have to do this. So she is so good at that. So loving and so respectful of me too. Now, not perfect, and I'm not perfect with her too, but I had to grow, and I learned how to love and respect Kay. She learned how to respect and love me, and we grew in that. All right? There's more about love, but I don't think I'm going to talk about it because it'll take a little bit of time. I want to go to the fourth principle. But the other thing about love that I just want to point out to you, it's this, and I'm not going to go into detail. The definition of love for how we love one another, how we love our spouse, and so on. Most people don't have the right definition, or let me put it this way, we don't have the complete definition. Either we have a wrong definition of love, or we have an incomplete definition of love. And if you have a wrong definition or an incomplete definition of love, it's wrong. Let me give you an example. What is a wrong definition of love? Recently, last week, I was in KL, and the pastor and his wife and myself, we were praying for this young lady. And this young lady said, you know, I'm dating this guy. And the guy said, if you love me, you will have sex with me. Now, we all know that's a wrong definition of love, right? But some people, young people, think that's the right definition. If you love me, you have sex with me. Wrong definition. So we know it's wrong. What is an incomplete definition of love? Now, the definition is true. It is part of love, but some people think just that definition itself makes it complete. Now, let me give an example, especially for Chinese people. Many Chinese men believe this, okay? So they have relationship with the wife and the kids get older, and the wife and the kids say to the husband, father, say to the man, you don't love us, husband. You don't love us, dad, okay? And the husband, the father would say this, what do you mean I don't love you? Look, you have a beautiful house to live. You have a car to drive. You have good education. What do you mean I don't love you? I give you everything you need. Right? What's wrong with that? Why would the wife say the man doesn't love them? Because the man's full definition of love, if I love, I provide. But from the children's perspective, the wife perspective, love needs to be so much more than that. It's not that you only provide. Are you spending any time? Are you caring for my needs? You see? So the man's definition of love, it's not an inaccurate definition, it's incomplete. It's only one aspect of love. It's one component of love. But love is not just one thing. Some people say, if I ask, what is love? They say, love is sacrifice. Now, love, it is sacrifice, but it's one component. But is love always sacrifice? Is it? I mean, you sacrifice for your baby, you sacrifice sleep. Do you want to sacrifice for your 40-year-old son and not get so much sleep for them? No, no, no. Love is not just sacrifice, you see? But love is providing, but love is not only providing. There's so much more to love. And most people don't understand the fullness of love. And maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. The fullness, there's 9 components of love and 3 sets of love, 9 components. The Lord gave me this last year because I've been growing in love. And if you see these 9 components, I ask people the definition of love and everything fits under that category. And it is very practical, okay? But I won't talk about it tonight because I want to finish principle 4. Okay, so that's principle 3. Love and respect the other person the way they need, the way they feel, or the way they receive love. And I gave you some practical examples. Okay. By the way, very hard to do that if you don't do principle number 2. If you don't get your hearts cleansed, because if you can't love yourself, you won't be able to love your spouse very well. Right? Okay. Okay. Any questions about principle 1, 2, and 3 so far? And there's only one more principle. Does it make sense? It's really not that hard. It is hard if we keep the negative things in our hearts. If you have the anger and the hurts and the fear and the sin and the evil things and the lies and the wrong value system in your heart, it will be very difficult to do. Very difficult. But when all that is cleansed, doing principle number 3 of love and respect is very easy. It's actually quite easy. You know, and many of you have your hearts cleansed, but if you start practicing this, how do I love? How do I respect my spouse the way they need? Little things. We're not talking about, please, don't come out of this and said, wives, don't tell your husband 3 honeymoons a year. Come on, let's do it. You know, I've heard wives told me this. They said, I'm going to start praying my husband that God speaks to him about honeymoons too. It's not that. The Lord gave me that for a very special purpose, part of which is to help me learn how to chase after my wife so I can teach it to people. I didn't realize it when the Lord spoke that to me. See, I live a simple life, and when God speaks it and I see it in the Word, I just believe it. I never said, oh, where am I going to get the money? Where am I going to get the time? God wants me to do it. I just, okay, Lord, you want me to do it? I'll do it. Just one step at a time. Okay? Okay, any question? You have asked some amazing question earlier. Principle 1, love is your choice. What kind of marriage do you want? What kind of family, what kind of life do you want? You have to begin with that. Okay? Number two, you can't love your spouse well if you don't love yourself. That's why we get our hearts cleansed. It is so vital. It's also the number 1 cause of broken relationship. You see. Now, you should be asking this question. What if I want a good marriage and my spouse doesn't want it? Right? What if I want it, but my spouse doesn't want it? You know, the beautiful thing is this. If you want it and you start living that life, and you have the abundant kingdom life, you have righteousness, you have peace, you have joy, you have love, you have power, you have a great purpose, the people around you will see it and they want it. It's just like that young couple. At first, it was the lady, Janet, and Ryan saw it. He said, I want it. And then the mom saw both of them and she said, I want it. And then the other family said, I want it. Because love, joy, and peace is so contagious. If we have it, other people want it. Non-believers, if you go outside, do you think people pay money for love, joy, and peace? Of course. People pay money to have more entertainment, joy. People pay money when their children are depressed, and they pay money when the children are cutting themselves so that they can have more peace. They pay money for love. But God gives it to us freely. The kingdom life, the abundant life. If you and I get it and we live it, it's not dependent on our spouse. We can live it first. And then the people around us will see it and they will want it. Okay? So, principle number 3, we learn to love and respect the other person the way they need. All right? Pretty easy so far. I mean, I didn't even give you any notes, and I don't have any PowerPoint because I just want to speak to you from the heart. And it's so easy that, you know, you can't even remember it, or you can write it down, but it's only 4. Number 4, principle number 4. Once we start growing in love and respect for one another, the 4th principle, the 2 shall become one. It's scriptural, it's the Bible. The 2 shall become one. Okay, do you know why that is so important? Because when 2 people get married, guess what they bring into a relationship with them? What do they bring? Number 1, they bring all of their hurt and pain from the past. Number 2, they bring their past experiences. They bring their own personalities and character. So usually opposite attract, right? The husband is usually very different from the wife, all right? And you know, there's a very interesting phenomenon. Before you married, you see them and you see the opposite in them. You're like, oh, they're so amazing. They have gifts that I don't have. Wow, they can make decisions so quickly. Look at the way they make the decision. After you get married, why do you make decisions so fast? How come you don't care about this person? The differences become, instead of something that you're attracted to, it becomes a negative thing. So when people get married, you have differences in their personality, you have differences in culture, you have differences in family experiences, how a family does this. Some people are more orderly, some people are more free. Some people say we need to plan, others say who needs to plan? Some people say we need to save, others say who needs to save? So you bring the differences plus the hurt and pain, you know, in your heart, the stones, and so that's why we start having conflict. And to make matter worse, the husband stopped chasing the wife, and then you have the negative things and the differences. That's why people say things will change. That's why my barber said, I'll have more gray hair, okay? By the way, having gray hair, it's not a bad thing, you know? According to the Bible, it's wisdom. So it's not a bad thing, you see. But when we have so much differences, the differences in general causes us conflicts, right? The children's education, our finances, how we spend. One person said, we need to do it this way. No, we need to do it this way. We need to give my mom more. How come you only do this and you don't think about my family? How come, all the differences. So what's the solution? How do the 2 become one? How? How do we do it? How? Do you know how? Is there a word, one word that can be used to describe becoming one? Anybody want to take a guess? How do people try to become one? What's the word? Anyone? You know, this church is an amazing church. It's such a loving church, so loving. You know, a lot of churches, everybody want to talk, but this church, you consider the interest of others ahead of yourself. You say, I want to hear their opinion. There it's more important. Pastor Malcolm, Irene, you've done a great job of training these people to be considerate of another person. What is that word? How do we become one? Any thought? To be united? United is a good word, but how? How? How do we be united? How do we become one? Fusion. Oh, fusion is a good word, but you know, fusion nowadays apply to food, right? The fusion food. Fusion food. What does it mean? Going together. But what's I mean? Look, if the husband wants to do, let's say raising kids, husband say we need to do it this way. The wife said we need to do it this way. Okay, here's the wife, here's the husband. How do we become one? How do we fuse? How do we unite? How do we do it together? Husband, wife, fuse like this, like that. Is that what it means? Accept the differences. Okay, it's true. Here's the husband differences, the wife. How? How do we accept the differences? How do we make the decision for our kid? Husband said this, wife said this. Some people say, okay, we'll do this sometime, we do this other time. Compromise. People say compromise, right? No compromise. Compromise look like this. Compromise, you're here, I'm here, so let's compromise. Let's go right here. Isn't that a good thing? No. Why not? Compromise, both parties get what they don't want. The husband want this, the wife want this. They only get half or they don't get half. But if we don't compromise, how do we become one? Because if you and I don't know how to become one, then we never become one with our wives or our husband. It's so hard. For most people, it's really hard. How do we become one? If the Bible tells us we should become one, there has to be a way. What is that way? Jesus is the way? Well, Dr. Haltun, okay. John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the way. All right. Okay. So husband say this is how we raise the kid. Wife say this is how. We say Jesus is the way. Great answer. Exactly. But the question is, what does that look like? How? You see, you know why we don't understand how to become one? Because we're missing something very important in our churches. We don't know what the Bible said about raising children. What if we learn the principle based on the Bible on how to raise children? And by the way, the Bible has principle for almost everything. How to have a great marriage, how to raise children, how to spend your money, how to do ministry, how to deal with conflicts. It's all in the Bible. The problem is we don't know it. See, if the husband believes here and the wife believes here, what if the Bible said, this is how we raise the children right here? Or if the Bible said this is how we raise our children right here, if husband and wife can agree, we are going to do what the Bible said. So if the Bible said here, we both agreed to move over here. But if the Bible said here, we both agreed to move right here. This way, it's not a compromise like, oh, I give you half of what I want, you give me half of what you want, and we come in between. But the in between could still be wrong because the Bible said here. But if we can figure out what the Bible said right here and we agree to it, this is what God said, we go right here. Now, this in raising children, it's money, it's education. The Bible talks about all of these things, but we don't know. We haven't really looked. We haven't tried to figure it out. And I live my life as much as possible based on what I see the Bible said. The Bible teaches me how to have a good marriage, how to raise children, or what to do with different things in my life, how to deal with in-laws. You know, the Bible teaches how we can have a great relationship with our older parents and our in-laws. It's in the Bible, but we don't know it. You see? We don't know how to disciple our children. It's a big problem now. But the Bible teaches how we can disciple our children, how to raise our children up in the ways of God. The Bible talks about discipline and how we can discipline our kids the right way. And the world is so messed up. I talked to Pastor Malcolm about that this morning, and I showed him some verses in the Bible. It really makes sense. What the Bible teaches about raising children, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. It's in the Bible. But compromise is like, hey, I know you don't believe me, and I don't quite believe you, but hey, just to make peace, let's go halfway. But the halfway might be the wrong way. What does the Bible say? And most people don't know how to find it in the Bible. On Saturday, when I talk about discipleship and how to raise disciple, I will teach you how to find what the Bible say, almost, the secret. And the secret even to having time and not worry about time in your life. Maybe we'll talk about that as well. Maybe. It's not part of discipleship. I use that for more leadership training and development, but we can talk about that. So now we try to figure out what the Bible say, and we don't compromise. We choose to follow what the Word of God says. Sometimes, like for example, recently, a week and a half ago, my plan was only come to Malaysia and go to Bangladesh 2.5 weeks. But 3 days, and I was going to send 2 people to go to Sri Lanka. But the main teacher texted me 3 days before the trip to Sri Lanka, said he can't make it. And because we already promised 9 pastors and their spouses and the leaders that we would go, I said, okay. I talked to my wife, Kay, this pastor can't go. And we already made the commitment to them from our ministry, RAK ministry. I said, Kay, I really don't want to go, because that means, number one, I have to be away from home and away from you for 3.5 weeks instead of 2.5. I just don't like to be away from my wife for so long. I don't want to do that. Okay. So number one. Number two, all of the changes. I have to cancel the airline ticket, and you got to buy new tickets for 3 days later. The cost is higher, and then we have to cancel the ticket, and we have, oh my goodness, it was such a mess. Such a mess that on my flight back to Houston from Bangladesh will take me over 36 hours, almost 40 hours to get home. And, I'm getting a little bit older, and it's harder for me to sit for long flights and everything, and I have trouble sleeping. So it's not as easy as it used to be to travel for me. Okay. So plus all of these changes, and I told Kay, I really don't want to go. Kay, what do you think? She said, I really don't want you to go either. Because, 3.5 weeks is a long time, she said. But she looked at me and she said, but we both looked, she said, we know the Lord wants you to go, right? She said, yeah. She said that. And she said, the right thing is because the Lord wants me to go. Because number one, we made a commitment. Number two, it'll be a blessing to the people in Sri Lanka. And we know the Lord wants us to do that. So we didn't compromise. We agreed because we believe this is what the Lord wants us to do. And we went for it, even though we didn't like it. Neither of us liked it. Neither of us wanted. But because we believe this is what the Lord wanted, we chose to do it. But in this case, we know what the Lord wants. The Lord wants us to go and make disciples of all nations. It's in the Bible. It's very clear. And we made a commitment to the group. So it's easier for Kay and I to become one because we just try to find out what the Bible says and we do it. So it's not compromise. I like fusion, but it's better. Jesus is the way, that's true, but put that in practical aspect. This is what the Bible teaches. And if we find it, we can walk in it. And in such a way, to be honest with you, Kay and I don't have much conflicts about raising children and finance and ministry and the responsibility at home. We understand what the Bible says. So we don't have that much conflict in those areas. Actually, almost none. Because we're united. We said, this is what the Bible said, let's do it. You see. But if you haven't learned how to find out what the Bible says about different areas, then it's a little bit hard. Saturday, I would teach you the secret to finding out what the Bible says and how in those different areas. And the good news, if you have heard me said before, back in 2017 and 2019, it is easy. These principles are not hard if we do it right. If you don't get your hearts cleansed, it'll be hard. If you don't want the kingdom life, it'll be hard because you'll settle for what you have. If you don't choose to love and respect the other person, then it'll be hard. But if you choose to, it's not hard at all. It's only these 4 principles, and it applies to everything in life. Okay? Any question? I hope, does this make sense? It's not that hard, is it? It's not hard for us to understand. Now, I'm warning you, unless you get your hearts cleansed, it'll be hard to practice. Because even if you try to love and respect your husband and they do something wrong and the things inside gets blown up, you said it doesn't work. But get the hearts cleansed, then all of these things become a lot easier. And if you need help doing that, please talk to me or Pastor Malcolm or even Sister Pauline. She can help with that. Or Sister Traylin and Dr. Hautun, they can help with that too. Okay? My heart, their heart, we want you to live this kingdom life, kingdom marriage, kingdom family, and for you to pass it on to your children and their children and the people around. So tomorrow we look at the 4 principles for raising amazing children. It's in the Bible. So Father, we just come to you in the name of Jesus. We thank you for the beginning of our time together and for this night. I thank you for every person here. And I thank you, Lord, for the family that you blessed us with. And we thank you for this church family. And Father, I know some of us are at good places and we might be on mountaintops and others might be in valleys, but it's just a journey through life. And Father, that we can start wherever we're at to go to the next level. So Father, I thank you for your promise, Lord, that you want to give us this kingdom abundant life. Lord, I pray that you would give each one of us a heart to say we want it, we want to get there, no matter how old we are, how young we are, no matter what our history have been. Lord, we come to you and we thank you, Lord, for the things that you already done in our lives and the greater things that you want to do for our lives, for our family, and for this church, that we will live out the kingdom life so that we can advance your kingdom for many to see how good you are and how amazing and loving and powerful you are. We bless everyone tonight and we give you praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Seumean. Hopefully tomorrow you have more questions.